Well, good morning and good afternoon to everybody, and thanks for joining us today. As you know, this is our 14th masterclass. We again have with us John Salick. He's our masterclass presenter. Our topic for today is digital invoicing and digital payments. And John, I'd like to invite you to go ahead with our masterclass today.
Great. Thank you, Akshay. And welcome, everyone. And thanks for joining. Got another good topic today, and actually a very timely topic, one you've probably heard a lot about, maybe not exactly sure of the terminology and what it means, but certainly one that came to the forefront during the pandemic and all the individuals working at home and having or not having access to what they need to do their job. So we'll have a quick introduction, definition of terms, and we'll talk about how digital invoicing and digital payments, there's a synergy between them. And then we'll get into more detail on digital invoicing, what it is, and the benefits it brings. Same thing on digital payments. Share with you a customer success story, and then we'll recap the benefits, wrap it up with a conclusion, and then answer any questions you might have. This year is going to be a big year for digital invoicing and digital payments. Last year, as I alluded to earlier, really exposed the need for it with many companies and many employees being unable to go to the office like they always did and access the tools, the documents that they had become used to. So if you were in a paper-based environment for invoicing and payments, and you were locked out of your office for a period of time, if not full time, you felt the impact. The inefficiencies were really exposed, and banks were closed to walk up business. Talked to a number of companies where paper invoices from their suppliers were sitting in the mailroom. There was nobody there to process them. Checks that were sent to the supplier's office instead of the bank lockbox, again, sat unopened, and that cash was not available to the companies. So it took some very basic processes like billing and paying those invoices, receiving those invoices, applying those payments, for a lot of companies were significantly hampered. And that's why those who are already involved in digital invoicing and digital payments were way ahead. And it spurred a lot of companies to evaluate making that move, and then of course, implementing and adopting. So let's get into some definitions here, and then we'll proceed to a little more detail. Digital invoice, because these terms are used and thrown around loosely, maybe it's not the right word, but everyone has their own version, so to speak. Digital invoicing, also known as e-invoicing and e-billing, is electronic delivery of an invoice to a customer. Electronic delivery versus the old practice of sending a paper invoice via the postal service, a courier service, whatever. And these electronic delivery modes can be email, SMS, delivery to a portal, EDI, electronic data interchange, which is kind of an old technology, but widely used between big buyers and big sellers, and kind of entrenched because of the investment to set them up and the fact that they actually work pretty well. So that's digital invoicing. Delivering the invoice in an electronic format, not in a hard copy paper form. And of course, these digital invoicing applications have additional functionality as well, which has helped their adoption and made them more popular. For example, they can pull in the data needed to actually produce the invoice from the shipping records, the purchase order, things like that, customer master, things like that. Can also include credit and debit adjustments. The digital invoicing will also track and record the invoicing and its delivery, which is very important. You want those invoices to arrive, you want them to be accepted by your customer. And most digital invoicing applications can tell you that there's been a successful or unsuccessful delivery of the invoice. And then a lot of them also have built in some basic collection functionality with reminders or what we used to call dunning letters to the customers. Hey, you know, we delivered you an invoice 35 days ago. The terms were net 30. Please pay attention to it in nice language. So that's the digital invoicing side. Let's talk about the digital payment side, money coming back in. And these also have different names: real-time payments, frictionless digital payments. And these are electronic payments. So it's the money going back that transfer funds, and also the remit advice. So remember that. We'll talk about that more in a few minutes, but that's very, very important because it's the key to some of the big cost savings that digital payments can bring to your company. And without getting too detailed here, digital payments, some characteristics that are important: made directly between the buyer and the seller, and it's made through a direct, secure payment gateway. And again, it can take different forms: credit or debit card, ACH, wire transfer, but it is electronic and it is direct and secure. We like to have a poll here and just a couple of quick questions here. All right, thank you. So the first question is your company planning to use digital payments? It's kind of a yes/no answer here. Make it simple. They're both yes/no answers. And so the first poll question is your company planning to use digital business-to-business invoicing in any of its forms that we have listed here? And it's a yes/no answer. So I'll give you a few seconds to reply. And the second question is your company planning to use digital business-to-business payments in any of its various forms that we have listed here? And again, a yes/no answer, folks. Okay, so we've defined digital invoicing, we've defined digital payments. Let's talk about the synergy here that I mentioned earlier. There's quite a powerful synergy between the two, and especially when combined with a customer care portal, EIPP portal, whatever you want to call it. It enables the completion of these transactions to be done quickly and with little effort. And it's particularly appealing to the small and medium-sized B2B customers and of course B2C customers as well, because it enables them to deal with the invoice and pay it in kind of one fell swoop, one effort. For example, Stripe claims 75% of the invoices it delivers on behalf of its clients are paid the same day. Now that seems awfully high, and I think it recognizes or reflects the heavy content of B2C customers. But still, as you'll see, some of this carries over to business as well. And certainly a customer EIPP portal kind of helps close the transaction here, because you've got the invoice being delivered digitally, electronically, you've got the payments being made electronically, and the customer portal helps by guiding the customer through the payment process, providing access to invoices, statements of account, other information they need. And certainly the payments can be executed via a range of mobile devices, and all this invoicing and payment data is captured. Let's go a little deeper into digital invoicing and start off by what I call are the imperatives of invoicing. When you step back and you look at it, invoicing at a higher level, what do you really need to do? What needs to be done? Remember, you're issuing an invoice, you want to get it paid. So the first thing is accuracy. An inaccurate invoice is going to delay payment and maybe and cause you a lot of rework, extra time, aggravation for your customers. So getting an accurate invoice is step one. And really anything less than 99% is not best practice anymore. The second imperative is deliver it in the method that your customer prescribes. I mean, it's part of customer satisfaction. It's part of being considered a top flight supplier. You want to get paid? Well, then deliver your invoice in the method your customer requests or requires. And then the other key imperative here is meet the customer's invoicing requirements. They want to see purchase order number, sales order number, um, your supplier ID number, whatever it is they want to see on the invoice, supply it. Now, that may require a little customization, but again, if you want to get paid, meet the requirements. And in Europe and Latin America, the last few years, there's been increasing requirements that when a company invoices a government agency, it has to be e-invoicing, has to be digital invoicing. So if you can't do that, the short-term solution is to hire a third-party service to do that for you. And of course, that's an additional cost. But where does digital invoicing fit in terms of meeting these imperatives of invoicing? Well, it helps the accuracy because it has the functionality to extract invoice data directly from the ERP, no human being keying the information in, which is subject to error. Certainly for your customers that require an electronic invoice, bingo, that's it. You're able to meet those requirements. May require a little customization, as I said, but still brings you a big leg up. And many of the larger companies, as customers, have required their vendors to post their invoices on their vendor portal. We no longer accept paper invoices. So that's been another big push to digital invoicing. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the customer EIPP portal facilitates this as well in that invoices are there, statements of accounts are there. You can register a dispute. There's a digital assistant to guide you through the payment process, answer any inquiries you have and things like that. So with these imperatives, digital invoicing meets these imperatives better than a paper invoice does. Let's look at the other side, digital payments. Remember, point we mentioned earlier, not only do digital payments transfer the funds, but they transmit the remit advice directly between the buyer and seller. And again, with the pandemic, this has been critical. If you're using paper checks and needing your employers, your payables folks to be in the office, you were severely hamstrung during the pandemic. And, everyone jokes, well, too bad. Certainly good for the cash, but when you can't pay your suppliers, you jeopardize that relationship and you jeopardize a continued supply of products and services that you need. So digital payments were a life-preserving capability during the pandemic. And again, the digital payments lower transaction fees through these new channels and payment gateways, particularly if you're using ACH payments, your payment fees go way down. And also digital payments provide instantaneous ability to pay in multiple currencies, which is great, So there's a lot of advantages on the payment side, and there's additional ones. We talked about meeting your customers' requirements. Well, that's a smart thing to do because you get paid sooner, but it's also uh, a way to increase your customers' overall experience. Hey, I want to pay digitally, and this supplier accommodates that. So I'm happy with them. Key element of strategic AR management, which we covered back in January. The other thing is, if you have a lot of small, medium-sized businesses among your customer base, typically they don't take care of admin tasks during standard business hours. They're doing it evenings, weekends, and the ability to pay digitally helps that, helps them significantly. And another nice feature of digital payments is you can schedule payments in the future. So if you're a little short of cash, you're anticipating receiving cash, you can schedule those payments for next week, and they'll be executed. And of course, this is very helpful when you have recurring payments like rent and subscriptions. And the other major advantage of digital payments is the cost. Mentioned this a little bit earlier. Transaction fees, lockbox processing charges. I mean, certainly when receiving digital payments, it's a lot cheaper than receiving paper checks. And the transaction fees are going down through the banking channels each year. And also has a big impact on cash application cost. Remember at the very outset, I mentioned that one of the big advantages of digital payments is that the funds and the remit advice travel together. For example, that's not the case under the old EDI convention because the payment travels through the banking channels, but the remit advice travels through the EDI, the electronic data interchange, and can be at a different time, received in a different part of the company, and results in a lot of searching around for remit advice, maybe a need to go to your customer's vendor portal to find out what invoices they paid in the most recent payment. So that speeds up the application of cash and reduces the cash application cost. I'll just give you an example here of one of our customers that implemented digital billing, digital payments, the customer care, EIPP portal, and of course the cash application module. By having all these things working together, the synergies I mentioned between digital invoicing, digital payments, and a customer care portal, look at some of the results they got. First of all, they were able to accommodate their customers' preference. A big step forward in customer sat. They were able to hit a 92% auto cash hit rate because these digital payments carry the remit advice with the payment. And they're in a standard format, which makes it easier to find the key data elements you need to apply cash, particularly if you're using an AI-powered digital assistant. Overall, between the lower payment transaction fees and the increased productivity in cash application, they experienced a 60% reduction in the cost to process incoming payments, which is a huge reduction. I mean, how many functions have you reduced the cost 60% in the last year or two? So just to wrap up, what are the benefits of digital invoicing and digital payments? Well, it's the ability to meet customer preferences, the increased productivity in cash application, and the reduced lockbox, bank processing costs, transaction costs, things like that. So you get faster payments, lower costs, and improve cash flow. I mean, there will be a fair number of customers who pay faster because you're billing them electronically than via paper. Our conclusion: digital invoice is now a requirement by many companies. And meeting that requirement leads to faster payments. There are also, on the other side, digital payments, faster, lower cost, more secure. When combined with a customer EIPP portal, there's a nice synergy among the three. And at the root of this is artificial intelligence powered digitalization and automation. Drives it all forward. Before we jump into your questions, just a quick reminder that in 2 weeks, our next masterclass topic will be accounts receivable in Asia and the strategic outlook for this year. Questions?
Thank you very much, John. I'm just going to open the poll now again, just to seek the responses from our participants, and then we'll get on to the questions. I've opened the poll, so please go ahead and respond onto the poll. Okay, so I think we got the responses coming in. We got 3 yeses, 18% for our first question, and we didn't get responses on the other question. For the second question, we got 1 yes, and the remaining were no responses. Getting back on the Q&A over here, the first question that we have for you is, why do you say that digital invoicing and digital payments are synergistic?
Because look at it from your customer's viewpoint. And they get the invoice electronically. They get it fast. It's easier to handle. It's right there for them to look at. Particularly if it's a smaller company, particularly if it's a lower value invoice. I mean, they look at it. It's not complicated. And they say, you know what? This invoice is in order. Rather than just put it aside and revisit the issue in a week, 2 weeks, something like that. What we're seeing is a lot of customers are saying, okay, I got the invoice. It's all in order. I know I'm going to have to pay it. Why not pay it right now? So if they have the capability to pay digitally and their supplier has the ability to receive and accept digital payments, a lot of them are deciding right now to just pay it. And again, the small, medium-sized businesses doing this in the evenings, on weekends, what we're seeing that indeed is happening, where customers are paying faster. Now, big company like General Motors, Walmart, and all, they're not going to pay earlier. They have a very well-developed accounts payable process and that sort of thing. But meet your customers' requirements, make it easy for them. You might be surprised at the results.
Thank you, John. The next question that we have is, how does digital invoicing help a company meet the invoicing imperatives?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the first one is if your customer requires it or prefers e-invoicing, you're able to meet it. Remember, if you get a notice from a big customer that says we no longer accept paper invoices, that's a big problem for you. So if you don't get them the invoice, they don't pay. So what most companies do in the short term is they engage or hire a third-party service that provides electronic invoicing for them. And that's certainly good in an emergency and in the short term, but ultimately, I would think you'd want to have that capability in-house, particularly as more and more customers require or at least express a preference for an electronic rather than a paper invoice.
Thank you, John. I know we are at the top of the hour, but let's just go ahead with the one other question. How do digital payments reduce the cost of cash application?
Well, it's the capture of remit data that comes in with the payment, and that remittance data is in a more standard format versus random. You know, if you look at companies pay by check and they attach a little remittance advice document, or they send it separately by EDI, email, or something like that. You know, those remittance documents are very unstructured, vary widely, and are more prone to error, reading the wrong information, misinterpreting it, that sort of thing. Whereas with electronic payments, it's all in a tight little package there that in a standard format that's easy to read and is very conducive to electronic reading, a digital assistant to read, extract, and input that data. And that accuracy is what drives up the auto cash hit rate.
Thank you very much, John. Appreciate that. And thank you all of you for joining us today. Just also wanted to just remind you all that we'll be having a next masterclass on 8th of April, which is again a Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And the topic of our next masterclass is AR in Asia, Strategic Outlook for 2021. And in the meanwhile, if you do have any questions on digital invoicing and digital payments, please do write to us at info@emagia.com. We'll be more than happy to respond to your questions. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you on our next masterclass.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, everyone. So long now.